From a competitive perspective, the recently released 8BitDo arcade stick is not for me. With things such as programmable macros, turbo support, and wireless connectivity, this is designed more towards the casual player who wants a more old-school-like experience when playing 2D games on Switch or PC. And for less than $100 with a cool design and pretty hefty weight, it's not a bad deal. I was still fascinated by it as it also featured modding support, even if it ended up not being amazing as I expected. I'm the Phantom Knot, and let's take a look at what can be modded inside the 8BitDo arcade stick. In order to get access to the internals, you'll need a size T3 torx screwdriver to remove the bottom 6 screws. After opening both halves, disconnect the USB pass-through harness. With full view of the internals, let's start off with the easiest part, push buttons. The stock main buttons are 30mm snap-in Sanwa Denshi OPSF 30 knockoffs. They play acceptably but have that weird friction feel found in knockoffs. You can easily replace them with the real deal. If you're thinking of using other buttons with screw nuts such as the OBSN 30s, you are out of luck as there's not enough room to properly install them. Same goes for the 2 macro buttons, which are the same knockoff design. If you want to use an alternative snap-in button such as those from Seimitsu or Hori, they probably will work fine. While I won't swap the buttons here, the process is easy. Remove the quick disconnect wires, take out the existing button, put in the new button, and connect the wires. Same goes for the 24mm buttons used for the macro commands. Now here's the more complicated and maybe controversial part, the lever side. Like the push buttons, the stock lever is a Sanwa Denshi JLF knockoff. While playable, it feels too wobbly for my taste. The harness for the lever has individual wires soldered to each of the switches, input and ground signals. I personally don't like this as 8BitDo should have looked into getting a clone that uses a PCB assembly for a reason I will mention soon. For now, let's put in a JLF. To avoid cutting the cable tie that's grouping up most of the wires inside, you will have to remove the wires connected from the lever by either desoldering or clipping them off. In order to remove the ball top, have one hand on the top and another with a flathead screwdriver on the other side turning counterclockwise. Unscrew the 4 points of the lever's mounting plate, and then it's removed. Basically do the reverse when installing the JLF up to the ball top install. Since the JLF uses a connector harness, you can't use the stock one under normal circumstances. Next to the stock harness, on the right are solder points for a JLF harness. Since soldering can be a turnoff to some people due to the damage it can do if not treated carefully, this is a real shame. For experienced modders, this is no issue, but for the casual user who might want a more true to arcade experience but have little to no modding experience, will have to deal with soldering it themselves, look to a modder to do it, or just get another arcade stick elsewhere. If you're doing a full Sanwa Denshi mod, you're set, but let's go back to the stock lever. It's equipped in a universal mounting plate, similar to what Paradise Arcade Shop has with the Paradise plate, and Koala with their flat plate converter. It has holes for different levers to install on, as well as holes to install onto the stick body. The website mentioned it has support for different levers, with some that were removed shortly after release. While I don't have all the levers provided, I have a couple to try and install the mounting plate on. First off is the Seimitsu LS32 lever. Despite the mention of it in the sticks page being removed, the plate works with the lever and seems to install into the stick just fine. The bottom half is a bit too tall for it to properly be fully utilized, sadly. The LS62 is a bit smaller and works just fine, but the short shaft might not be ideal. Going to the Korean side with the IST Alpha 49S and Crown spendingless levers, the plate can't work with these as it lacks the 30mm middle hole clearance for the collars to go through. Using the older Crown 303F lever, I was able to install the plate, but it's ultimately too tall for proper use. As for the previously claimed support for levers such as those from HOP or IL, it's a weird story. With the right screw and nuts, you could technically use the plate with those levers, but in terms of installing the stick itself, it's too big to properly fit at all. While the mention of the American and European levers are gone on the page, 8BitDo should have properly tested these levers beforehand. Outside of custom sticks, getting a stick body to support at least these levers is not easy to come by, and can be very expensive as well. There is good news as people such as Butterage and Junk Food Custom Arcades are working on their own body designs that can support them, so look out for them in the future. Back to the plate. I personally see it as a bit of a waste to have. Casual users are probably going to be content with the stock lever, while those who want a better feeling lever will install a JLF and call it a day. Everyone else can probably look into other sticks if they want to utilize more levers than the nerfed list. 8BitDo should have used the money for at least a JLF clone that has a harness to make swapping to a real JLF a lot easier. The marketing of the sticks is tinkering, referred to as Ultra-Moddable, feels very mixed. The buttons, while swappable for real deal arcade parts, it's ultimately limited to snap-ins due to the design of the stick. Those who prefer most screw-on buttons will be out of luck. The lever side is just weirdly confusing, as well as a bit more labor intensive than expected. For $90, I can't complain too much. Add $40 more for Sanwa Denshi parts, and it's not too shabby. If you're expecting more, you can find other sticks elsewhere that's probably a lot more mod friendly. Until next time, thank you for watching.